This likely won't be reported in any of the Western medias, but let's hear directly from a Chinese regulator what they think about Chinese companies going overseas, and also what are the reasons behind for new regulations around overseas listing of Chinese companies and so on.
Media outside of China have sort of characterized this as a tightening of policy that allows Chinese companies to list overseas, or perhaps restriction as well. What is the CSRC's response to that?
Well, I think previously, as I said, there was no rule, right?
Yeah.
And capital markets operate based on rules. So I mentioned Luckin Coffee, I mentioned the DIDI, that are not good, right? So to make the overseas listing by Chinese companies sustainable, right, and make it sure that investors, overseas investors, are well protected, we need a more complete rule to plug in, as you said, in the hole.
Yeah.
Right. So that's not a tightening of of the rules.
Yeah.
It's I would say it's a perfection of the rules, and we will follow the principle that companies intrinsically have a right to choose a place to list, and we will encourage Chinese companies to list abroad so that they can make good use of international capital markets for their growth.
So in addition to what this gentleman is actually saying here on Chinese TV, I think the positive is actually the fact that he is going on TV and speaking out in proper English. So finally investors or institutions, as well as possibly some media representatives, can actually understand the reasons behind it. And it's pretty much aligned with what I've always said here on the channel, also regarding Luckin Coffee and DIDI.
Because when one of these companies violated some regulatory rules in a foreign market, you take an example of Luckin Coffee, right? It's an example of that. And they made up their financial numbers, right, last year. And the SEC wanted to investigate it, right?
Yeah.
And the SEC had to come to us for cooperation in terms of investigation, because all Luckin Coffee's operations are in the Chinese mainland. But before SEC came to us, we even did not know that Luckin Coffee had gone to New York and has been listed there, because it never went through the CSRC. Because technically it was registered in Cayman Island, and it was considered a foreign company, not under the jurisdiction of the Chinese security regulators. For example, if you are a internet company, right, and you want to list in New York, fine, it's welcome, right? But then you have to come to the CSRC with an application for doing that, and the CSRC would initiate an internal interdepartmental process to approve this company, because a lot of these internet-based companies have sensitive data. And once it's approved, the CSRC will give them a formal pass, right? And then the SEC will be much assured, because this company has went through an approval process in China, and similar situations as DIDI will not happen. So I think that this new regulation gives companies a formal process to follow, and give overseas regulators a confidence in the Chinese companies that go to list in their market. And then if some of these companies have certain problems in terms of regulation, there will be already a understanding between the CSRC and the SEC prior to their listing. So the regulation will be also much easier.
So of course this will take more time, and final clarity on the rules and how they are going to be established. But it seems like the intent is really clear on the Chinese regulators want Chinese companies to go list overseas. They want it to happen in a regulatory way that they can have a say in how it's going to happen, and they want to prevent stories like DIDI and Luckin Coffee that happened before. And it's also pretty likely that they want to find a compromise or a common understanding and some common rule sets between the SEC and the CSRC, the Chinese regulators, and also the PCAOB, although that's not been part of this video topic. But anyways, this is like the overall context here. So I just wanted to give you this primary source, which is a Chinese official speaking, rather than some unknown sources that are often quoted by media like Bloomberg. So with that, let's hope that finally in 2022 we'll see clarity on all of these topics. Anyway, thank you guys for watching and see you in the next one.